Welcome back to the Shema podcast, my friends, and a special 7-part series on the Merkavah, the divine chariot, with Rabbi Meisel. In our tradition, the avos and great leaders of Israel are described not just as individuals, but as living pillars who embodied and carried the presence of Hashem into this world. Chazal teach that Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and finally David HaMelech each became a Merkavah, a chariot for the Shekinah. Through their lives, choices, and spiritual strength, they reveal different attributes of Hashem to the world. Avraham with chesed, kindness, Yitzchak with gevurah, strength and discipline, Yaakov with tiferes, harmony and balance, Moshe with netzach, endurance and eternity, Aharon HaKohen, splendor and humility, Yosef with yesod, which is foundation and moral purity, and David HaMelech with malchus, which is kingship and the sovereignty of Hashem manifest in this world. Over the next 7 episodes, Rabbi Meisel will guide us through the lives and midos of these great figures. One by one, we'll explore their unique attributes, their challenges, and the internal lessons they give us on how a human being can become a vessel for the divine. This is not just history, my friends. It is a roadmap for our own avodah today. Just as they became the Merkavah of Hashem in their time, so too can we strive to carry His presence into our own lives and the world around us.
Welcome to the Shema podcast, the podcast for the perplexed, where Torah insights, intertwined through personal stories, as well as interviews with leading Torah scholars, demonstrate the empowering qualities of Torah and mitzvot. To share feedback, suggest future topics, or ask questions for the host or his guests, click the show notes to join the growing WhatsApp community. Now to the show.
Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of the Shema podcast in our ongoing 7-part series on the Merkavah. I don't know about you, my friends, but I have found this so beneficial. The last episode we did on Netzach and Moshe Rabbeinu was just like life-changing for me. It was definitely an area that I had a lack of understanding and therefore a lack of development. I think part of the problem is that when you're a Baal Teshuvah, you come from a world where you're in control of everything, which is a very tough world to live in. You know, you control every single variable. So your livelihood, you're in control. I remember when my daughter was like 2 or 3 years old, and my wife came into my office on a Sunday and said, "We're going to go to the park. Let's take Elsie to the park." And I said, I can't do that. She's like, "What else do you have going on?" And I said, "I just realized that in our financial plan that I built in the spreadsheet, that I'm using a linear inflation rate based off the long-term average, which is so irresponsible. I mean, why would I think that we'd be at 3.5% forever? That throws off everything. It needs to be variable and dynamic. So no, it would not be responsible for me to go play with our daughter at the park today."
Wow.
When I need to sit and rerun the calculations in the spreadsheet. Now, here we are. My daughter just left to Israel, and she was going to the airport. I was crying, thinking about those moments when she was a little girl, and my financial plan, no matter how detailed I made it, is totally whacked out, and nothing came true. So, but you go from this point, you start learning about Hashem and having emunah, and you just like, let go. Hashem takes control of it all. But then you get to another point, which I'm realizing now, is like, but Hashem says, no, I want you involved, but know that the outcome is all me. And Rabbi Meisel, maybe you could start here. There was something I read recently, but I'm reading so many different texts, I forget like where I pulled it from. But it was talking about these levels of emunah, and it was 3 cases. One was David HaMelech. He goes into battle and he has emunah that Hashem's going to control the outcome. And I think there's 3 other examples, and one of them where the king just said, "I went to sleep."
Chizkiah?
Yeah, maybe that was it. And he said, like, I just went to sleep, and then Hashem will take care of it. Who had more emunah? And the conclusion was David HaMelech, because he went into battle. He did the histados. He put in the effort and still was able to know that Hashem was involved. Because I think that's where I've been failing a little bit, is like, yes, be involved. Be a co-creator. But know that if you can be involved and then still get your ego out of the way, and maybe that's what we're going to get in today with Hod, get your ego out of the way and realize the outcome is all Hashem, then that's really sort of like deepens our level of partnership, closeness in this world. Why don't we start there?
It's kind of perfect. If you remember last week, we started by talking about how Netzach and Hod were trei palgei gufa, two halves of a body. And the notion of two halves of a body is you really can't have one without the other. And specifically, the place on the body that Netzach and Hod represent are the right and the left leg. The right and the left leg, our feet. And so when you walk with one step on the right, which is Netzach, conquest, conquering, and foreverness, so to speak, that like I got this, like you were saying, I want to conquer this. I want to figure it out because I have to control it. So you think you can, like that's one side. But after you take a step, you realize you can't go anywhere because you need the balance, which is the left leg, which is Hod. We're going to discuss it way more deeply. But in short, Hod is the opposite. It's the complete mirror of this, which is with all my power, with all my gifts, with everything that I've been fighting for, and the conquest, the success, the things that I did well, I'm stopping and saying that all of that was Hashem in the first place. Nothing that I did actually did anything. It was just creating the kli that Hashem wants me to create, so he pours it in. But it's complete, it's emptying the vessel, right? So then you wind up again with all of your energy and you take another step on the right. Because you can't just do that either, right? Like we're here, Hashem put us here to do something, to create, to, whether it's through Harbatas Torah or through Chesed or whatever we're doing in this world. So both of them are required. And hopefully through the journey of Moshe and Aaron, we'll see this in a much more beautiful way. And I was actually thinking last week, as much as we went practical, we didn't delve enough into the practical side of Netzach and Hod, how it applies in life. And I was actually hoping that today we'll do that a little bit more.
Perfect. I think you're also bringing a lot of clarity to this idea of vessels and light. It's like everyone who goes to a Kabbalah 101 course that Hebrew rabbis love doing, and people come back and they're all excited and they're learning about lights and vessels and sephiros, and then you're like, so what does that mean? And they're like, I have no idea. What's a light? What's a light? But now I think everyone's starting to understand it's Hashem's energy, but so I guess manifesting in these different attributes. And what we're doing is, again, we're balancing them out the way in which he does in his interaction in the world. But it's bringing clarity this whole idea of what was the shattering of the vessels. And it also goes back to an episode I did earlier this year on the will to receive in order to receive versus the will to receive in order to give, like Hashem gives. That's how we align. And everything, whether we start with from Chachma, gives over to Bina, that creates Das. From Chesed, gives over to Gevurah, that creates Tiferes, beauty. And now we're learning that, Netzach, like you just said, we have the will, we create the kli, we do the action, say, I want to do this, Hashem, I want to be the vessel for it in this world. Hashem fills it, but then it has to flow to Hod. So it's more like this energy is flowing through us, and then in the end, we're bringing out Hashem's essence into the world to a degree. We're being a light for Hashem in the world by marrying the balance of these attributes.
We carry his name, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm also, I don't know if this ties in, but I was thinking a lot about Aaron this morning. And it seems like how he fits in with Hod, because the main thing we know about Aaron, or I could say the main thing I know about Aaron, is that he was kindness. He was the one that he brought peace everywhere, and he was willing to fib a little bit in order to bring peace.
Okay.
Because he would go to one person, he's like, he's so distraught. He's so distraught. He just really wants to make up with you. And you go to the person like, he's so distraught, even if it wasn't true. And we know there's a template for that, because when Hashem is interacting with Avraham and Sarah's laughing, and he tells Avraham, she's laughing because she thought she was too old to have a baby.
Okay. And
the truth was, she was laughing because she was like, Avraham's too old to have a baby, But Hashem's like, I'm not going to tell Avraham the truth here. I want to keep peace in the home, So Hashem fibbed a little bit, Now, I'm curious to know how that fits into all this, but I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah, it's the correct direction, but it actually points to a problem first, because, and I think I mentioned it a little bit last week, when you think about Netzach and Hod and why it gets confusing, like especially in terms of the Ushpizan. So Aharon is number 5, right? Which is parallel to Hod. And when you think about Aharon, you think about, you're saying kindness, like running out to go do good. You think of Avram, right? Which is Chesed, which is the right side. And somehow Aharon is ending up on the left, which is Gevura, which is, it's not selfish, but for lack of a better term, the power of Gevura is usually seen in terms of a self-centered perspective. Like, I have to protect what's here. I have to guard it.
Yeah, it's restriction.
So it seems the opposite, right?
Right.
Very counterintuitive. Good. So that is also where I had struggled for a while until I understood. I'm going to start with actually a really fun story, because the way that we have trade palgei de gufa, the 2 halves of the body, right? So the 2 halves, of Netzach and Hod are Moshe and Aharon, who are brothers. Kind of neat, right? To like have this idea that like we have these 2 people who have to be together, and all of a sudden their representation of this world is also it's a mirror. So I want to share a story, if that's okay.
Please.
Rav Aharon Kotler was at a crossroads in his life when he was leaving Europe. When he was leaving Europe, he was faced with a question of where do I go? His father-in-law had invited him to, I think it was the Yeshiva Eitz Chaim, I think it was the name of the yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. He said, come, be the Rosh Yeshiva there. Before he had been in the yeshiva of Klutsk or Sletsk, depending. The borders were moving back and forth, Russia and Poland, and they had to move from one to the other. A whole story, it's fascinating. But his father-in-law said, come to Eretz Yisrael, be the Rosh Yeshiva there. And Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote him a letter and said, no, I need you to come to America. America's a desert. There's nothing here Torah-wise. So he has to decide where he's going to go.
Okay.
It was definitely pre the Torah Renaissance that we see in America.
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable. So Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote this letter to Rav Aharon Kotler, and Rav Aharon Kotler didn't know what to do, and he tried a practice called the Goral Hagra. You ever heard this before? It's one of these don't try this at home things. Apparently can even, I don't understand it, but it costs you a lot of your schar to have to do this.
Okay.
But there's a practice that has to do with going to the mikvah and being pure first, and then you open up a Tanakh, and it's something about like turning 7 chapters and then 7 pages and then 7 verses, something along those lines. And I don't try it at home, especially because I don't actually know the precision of it.
Yeah.
And so Rav Aharon Kotler opens it, and the verse that he lands on, well, he does this Goral Hagra, and he opens up the Tanakh, and he goes through it, and he lands on a verse. And the verse says, God said to Aharon, Lech likras Moshe bamidbar, or Hamidbara, go to Moshe in the desert. How wild.
Yeah.
And so he got his answer. And he came to the desert of America. He established the Lakewood Yeshiva. And as we know,
wow,
it's been the incredible force of the Torah Renaissance in America. Obviously, there's other players too, and other powers and other people, but Rav Aharon Kotler is arguably the most influential Torah personality in all of American history. Not necessarily, but arguably he might have been that exact one. But between him and Rav Moshe Feinstein, so then they came to America. Rav Moshe Feinstein was the din. He was the psak. He was the Moshe Rabbeinu, right, so to speak. And Rav Aharon was the one spreading Torah, and you should know, like Pasuk says, the words say as follows: Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Elazar is the name of Rabbi Chanina. Tamidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. Tamidei Chachamim, men of wisdom of Torah, add peace to the world. Shneamar, as the pasuk says, v'chol banaich l'midei Hashem, v'rav shel banaich, right? And all my builders, the ones who learn Hashem's word, right? And lots of pieces is to these builders. Al tikrei banaich el banaich. And banaich is actually read in the verse as my children. But Chazal say, don't read it as banaich, my children, read it as my builders, the ones who are Talmid Chacham.
Okay, yes, this is in the Siddur.
Right, correct, and in Keller Kenu. And it's interesting because Aharon is the man of Shalom, Aharon HaKohen. Right. So you have now Moshe, who was paskening, right, halacha, and you had Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Aharon Kotler, who was bringing Talmidei Chacham to the country. Fascinating, right? Shalom.
Clarify this a little more, because it still seems sort of backwards. You would think the person that was going out and spreading Torah would be Nitzach.
We'll get there. I'm going exactly there.
Okay.
But I had to start with the story just because it's close to my heart. And it echoes the idea that that you have Moshe and Aaron together, that they work together. And it felt very right here.
Yes.
So let's explore this a little bit. So Aharon HaKohen is very precious, and Hillel speaks about him in a Mishnah. Actually, my son's name is Hillel Aharon. And Hillel is after his grandfather, but also in mind Hillel from the Shnayos. And Aaron was after Aharon Color. And what does Hillel say about Aaron? It says that we should be like the Talmidim of Aaron, that we should be Ohev Shalom, love peace, Rodef Shalom, chase peace, Ohev Asa Torah, love the Torah, Ohev Asa Brios, love all people, and bring them closer to Torah. Aaron is the paradigm of peace. Shalom is an amazing thing because the other Mishnah that speaks about it is the very, very last Mishnah in all of Shas.
Okay.
Imagine being Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi and having to make the decisions of how do I close what is arguably the most important text, period. It is the crux of the Torah Shebaal Peh. And at that time, we didn't have Shas, the Gemaras yet, right?
Right.
At least not written. And he quotes Rishuva and Chalafta, and he also speaks about peace. We'll put these two together, we're going to understand a lot more. Rabbi Shimon Chalafta says, Lo matza Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem could not find Kli machzik bracha l'Yisrael, a single vessel to hold blessing for the Jewish people. He couldn't find a single one, God himself, Ella, except for one thing, Hashalom. The only thing that can hold blessing in the world is peace. Aaron is a Baal Chesed, but Aaron's path of Chesed came through being a Kli. What is the significance of Shalom as a Kli? So the most important thing for a Kli to do is to hold stuff. That's its job. But you can't fill it unless you have nothing else inside.
Right.
But the Merkavah of Merkavahs, the chariot that we spoke about, is here. You have to give up everything sometimes for peace. And what I mean by everything is yourself. Right? You give up on the things that are important to you in order to make space for the other person. It's perhaps, and I'm sure for some listeners it'll be this, it's perhaps the hardest test that we go through in life sometimes, is giving up of ourselves and moving it aside. You know, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach would describe that when he got married, he made a rule in his house that for the next 10 years, his wife was right no matter what. And I think he described that was the hardest thing he ever had to do. It's amazing.
Advice I remember hearing very, very early on was when it came to marital disputes is, do you want to be right or do you want to have a happy marriage?
Right.
And also, doesn't shalom, peace, shalom also mean whole?
It does. It means, shlemus means being whole, which is seemingly the opposite, right? Like whole means I'm full, but shalom, we're talking about, you have to remove, right?
Right.
But the funniest part, the biggest secret about Shlemos is that if you were whole like God, right, lahavdil, right, like you know, we're humans, but if we were godly and we were whole, we wouldn't need to be here. And being shalem, what people don't understand enough is that being whole is the cup that's being filled is not by you. It's making room for that cup to be filled from the outside. There's something else. There's someone else, right, that needs to be part of it. And the joy that comes is when those two opposites come together. When your cup is filled, or at the Rebbitzin, right, when you and your wife come together, you make that space, and she fills it with love, and all of a sudden you're whole, and you're like, whoa, everything I was fighting for was right here, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Whole depends on how you look at it, but the reality of whole is that Klei Yisrael too are one.
Say more.
Right? So the idea of bring shalom, peace, is also bring wholeness, which is uniting Klei Yisrael through loving each other. Right.
So you're saying that the idea of Aaron bringing shalom was to help them understand that they were actually shards of one vessel.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Good. Okay. So let's develop shalom a little bit more. And Aaron, and it's interesting because like just off the cuff, when you think about Aaron's story and the idea of what we're talking about of shalom. So the first big move that Aaron's going to have to do is when he sees Moshe, is to step aside, is to know that the younger brother is going to be the one who's going to be the big guy, right?
Yes.
And if you think about the story, so Aaron wasn't sad. Aaron was happy. He was joyous, the way the Torah describes it.
Right.
He was joyous that his brother had that.
Right.
And where does that come from? How does someone have that joy?
I have no idea.
So I'll tell you, and you'll recognize when you hear it.
Okay.
There are times in your life that things are flowing, that you're feeling like 100%. And at those times, you're way less defensive. Things don't hurt as much. You're happier for other people.
True.
And what's really happening is you are in a state of shleimus. You feel whole and complete. And so when someone else is getting something, you're not like, oh my gosh, why am I not getting it? The truth is that this doesn't have to be only in a time when things are going well. The greatness of a person is to try to be b'shleimus always, is that you know that your cup is always full. And what is it full with? It's with Hashem. If you remember, we mentioned this, I think it was the last episode, we talked about the prayer of Adon Olam. So in there's a big secret about prayer. We say that Hashem is the minas kosi b'yom ha'kra, that when I call God, on the day, b'yom ha'kra means the day that I call God, when I'm davening to Him, Hashem is minas kosi, the portion of my cup. We think when we're asking for Hashem's blessing, we're asking for His help, which we are. But the thing that comes into your cup is way, 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 way better than anything that you just asked for. It's not the money. You get Hashem Himself. Could you imagine, just before responding, process for a second, what that means? That every single time that you daven, that when you ask for Hashem, the answer is Hashem. Hashem is coming to fill your cup, right? It may not be exactly the thing that you're looking for in the way that you're perceiving it. It may be yes, maybe no, but the answer to tefillah is always Hashem. You're pulling Him into your world, into your life. And that's real shleimus. If you're walking in life and know that I have what I need, it's hard. And it's going to be something we can work on a little bit in this episode, but it's important to process that.
So you're basically what you're saying is that any illusion of lack we have in this world is really just a lack of Hashem.
Yeah, He's the source of blessing, right?
Right, He's the source of everything. Because the whole idea of Hashem created the world in order to bestow goodness, and what is the goodness? It's Himself. This is the source of everything.
Yeah. And there's the way that it manifests, right? That's and more of the manifestation conversations about being able to look at a situation and think God, and it can elevate it, and you can see the revealed good. It's its own episode. But just like the idea is that He's always there. And when you call Him, you're pulling Him into your world in a much more real way.
No, I was just thinking about this exact topic. It was last week, which is why I have people all the time suggest people to bring on the podcast and ideas. And I'm like, I just bring people on to teach me things that I want to learn about. And if someone else wants to listen, great.
Love it.
But, this whole idea, when I had more abundance in a certain area, it was just like, it was so much easier to just be like totally happy for everyone. And I realized I started to struggle with that when I started to lack in that area.
Yeah.
But I caught myself and I realized like, wow, that's sort of like messed up. But I go, and I realized like, well, that's exactly what Hashem wants you to work on.
Yes. I don't know exactly which moments what Hashem wants you to work on, but it is certainly something to grow in for all of us. And it's very real and it's very normal. And that's why I knew I could call it out, because like it resonates with everyone, that it's easier to be besimcha about for other people when you feel whole. It's easier to celebrate their wins. Our tzaddikim would say that, I think Shalom Arush even says this, Eliezer Brody's Rebbe. So I think he says this, that sometimes there's going to be a moment before your blessing comes in, and Hashem sends a test, and He sends someone else close to you the same blessing. And your job in that moment is to fill your heart with joy for them, right?
Right.
Power, right? They're Lo Sachmo, the last of the 10 devots.
Yes.
So Rabbi Nachman says there's a secret there. What's the secret of Lo Sachmo? He says that we know that Ratzon, that desire, drives the world. God gave you a gift that if you really want something deeply and you focus on it, the idea of manifesting, law of attraction, you really dig deep, right? You want to know Shas, dig deep and like you can pull and move the world. It says because it's so powerful, if you can't keep your ratzon on the world that's yours and not someone else's, like you can want what they have, but not theirs.
Right.
I would love to have, right? But if you're drawing in a blessing that's theirs and pulling it away, it's an incredibly powerful danger, right? God gave you the gift of being able to move the world. And if you're going to move it by focusing on someone else's blessing, it's a problem. You focus on your blessing. You focus on my God, my cup is whole. I know you're coming. And this is what I need. This is what I want. It's totally transformative. It's very, very difficult. It's in the world of Aharon. So I'm going to keep going with this if that's okay.
Sure.
So with Aharon, so he said he moved away from Moshe. That's already there. He also wound up being the mouthpiece for another person, right? It's hard, right? It's further of that idea, right?
Right.
But at the same time, he was the mouthpiece for Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the mouthpiece for Hashem. He was the one who actually was the first one to manifest the miracle of Dam. Of the first three came through Aharon, not through Moshe, even though he was still the shliach and the number two. It's interesting because in Kel Adon, in davening, on Shabbos, so we say the following words. Like we're describing the sun and the moon and the celestial beings, and we say, Smechim b'tseisam, v'sasim b'voam. They're joyous when they go out, and they're happy when they come in. Their job, right? I thought about this like for years now, and it's out with me. It's like there are moments that we don't get to go out into the sun and shine. We're the receptor, right? And when you have the right and the left side in Kabbalah, it's always the sun and the moon. The moon is the receiver of the light of someone else's and reflecting it. But the joy comes in when it's not your time either, and that's also joyous. It's a different. Sometimes it's harder. For an introvert like me, a lot of times I like not being in the center stage. And for a period of my life, I really appreciated not having to do that. Now I'm in a little bit of a different place where I'm in teaching mode and loving it and being back here. But the joy shouldn't come from having to avoid it. The joy should be coming from like in the place that you're not expecting to be like Hashem. Like this is my time to be in the coming back in moments where like I'm going to be the one receiving as opposed to like shining out. And that's Aharon.
I think we've all experienced this because everyone has people on their list they daven for a spouse or for their health return or something. And when you invest yourself in that and you're davening, they're on your list every morning, and then that area gets resolved for them, you do get filled with joy because you've invested so much into having this person have this thing.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Because our mindset is right because we're vested in the process that they lack this and this is painting me. And okay.
It's funny because like the biggest secret of it is when you empower someone else and celebrate them or give to them as opposed to you being the center. So you actually wind up being a lot bigger in the way that you described. When I do kindness for another person and they run with it, the Chavetz Chaim says like all those exponential like blessings that wind up coming in the world because of this, I gave him power. I made him feel good, and all of a sudden he has a good day. And now his good day affected his wife and his children and his business and these things. And that caused this mitzvah and that meiser and this tefillah. I get reward for every single one of those things that happen after. So in the moments of moving aside, you actually become way bigger, not way smaller. And when it comes to the midah of Hod, this is the secret. The midah of Hod is like this. Literally, Hod means to think, hodah, or to moda, to admit. I admit that this isn't mine. I admit that this is right. It's stepping aside from what you're arguing and accepting that it's someone else. So the idea of thanks or gratitude is very much in line with what we're describing in the Shalom. And hopefully this will help us see why Aharon is on the left side instead of the right, on the side of Hod, is that it's the idea of removing one's self. It's making space. When we talk about Hashem, there's a term in Chassidus called tzimtzum, and a term in Kabbalah called tzimtzum, of minimization. And so to speak, it's impossible to say, but you have to say it, but it's not correct when it's correct. It's funny. Tzimtzum means that Hashem minimized himself and made space for the world. But at the same time, if you process that, that is exactly how Ein Melech B'lo Am, there's no king without a nation. His greatest kavod and honor can only come through this world. When a person chooses to honor someone, that's a much greater honor. So when he's moving aside, the idea of pulling in is going to be this idea of like making way. So when you make way, there's two different ways that you can make way. There's positive and there's negative. The midah of Hod is very powerful in the sense of gratitude, of thanks, of recognition. But the weakness of Hod, and this is actually spoken about a lot. The weakness of Hod is something that's very important for people to know, is that what is it that you're making way for? Hod, in terms of balance with Netzach, usually it's like this. Netzach wants to expand, wants to do something, and Hod says, we can't do this. It's dangerous. It's almost like having the love and the fear, with regards to I want to do this chesed, I want to do this kindness. No, you shouldn't. This is irresponsible, or like this or that, right? And Hod is trying to like throw the other energy, like slow down. Like, I can't keep up with you. You're the right leg, I'm the left leg. I can't push this fast, right? Like, there's slow down, balance. Like don't go all the way to the right. You're gonna. All right, it's like keeping you on course. But when it listens to the voice of no, so sometimes no is a really bad thing. In terms of the battle of Hanukkah, so Hanukkah is actually the holiday of Hod, so it's a good one to pull from. It's the Kohen, it's Aharon. And Hanukkah, when you face the Maccabees, the most obvious way to use Hod is to just sit. They weren't going to kill the Jews, right? The Yevanim weren't coming to kill the Jews. The most simple thing is, I'm giving in to the power that is coming to attack, that's coming to control, that's coming to rule the world, by the way, not just the Jewish people. And they're doing it. So let's step aside, they'll let us live, right? And that should be what Hod is. So when you're giving into a svara, when you're giving into like a logic, so that's where Hod comes in. So what really happens is that the most potent version, I think, that we see this in our everyday is called Yeush. It's called giving up. I can't fight anymore. It's too much. Like there's nothing left. That's Yeush. Rabbi Nachman, is famous for saying Ein Yeush be'olam. There's no such thing as giving up. Yeush is despair. And what it does is it tells you can't keep going. You did it yesterday and you did it the day before and then you give up. You tried it, right? You tried this diet 700 times. And believe me, I've tried diets probably 700 times, right? And you can't go. You can't keep going. And that's giving up. It's giving up to the voice of negativity, the voice of Amalek, right? Amalek is the voice of doubt, right? So that's where Hod is dangerous. It's a useful tool. You're supposed to recognize fear and danger, and then there's anxiety, which paralyzes the person who's fearful, right? There's anxiety that can drive you, and then there's anxiety that can collapse you, and it's a fear of something that stops you from doing. Then you have the story of Hanukkah. So what happened instead of Hod? So the power that manifests instead was the power of the Kohen. And this is the beauty of Hod. Instead of making way for the negativity, for the dominance, for the thing that's wrong, you make way for light. The answer to Hod is making so much space for the Torah and for Hashem to fill it. And its power will completely and totally destruct all the negative if you're able to make that space. The Talmud describes, there's a halach we're supposed to say a bracha, 100 brachas a day, 100 brachos. And the word baruch is a word of complete submission in a way. Baruch means thank you. I know it's yours. If you eat from a food without saying a bracha, so you're actually stealing from heaven. Right? The pasuk says, Hashem ha'aretz mo'ah, God owns the entire universe. The ha'aretz nasa livnei adam. Hashemayim Hashem Hashem, the heaven belongs to God, and the land belongs to man. But the other pasuk says, Hashem ha'aretz mo'ah, God owns the land. The Talmud says, so God owns the land or man owns the land? We know the heavens is God. What about the land? So the Gemara says, before a bracha, it belongs to God. After a bracha, it belongs to you. The way to get blessing is to submit. This isn't mine, now it's yours. This isn't mine, now it's yours. You want more things to come in? So the 100 brachas a day that you say, you're making way for more to come in. The Talmud says you're also stealing from the world when you don't say a bracha. And the first page of the 6th chapter of Brachos talks about this. And it says you're stealing from the world. Why are you stealing from the world? Because every time you say the word Baruch, it brings shefa, it brings blessing into the world. Every single time you say a blessing, it channels more blessing into the world. It's a good strategy for Elul, by the way.
Yes,
is to really dig deep into that. And Birkas Hamazon being like the strategy for pulling in Parnasa, the blessing. Parnasa, it comes from submission. So we had Netzach was Moshe and Aharon being Hod. So the idea of shalom, or the idea of bracha, or hodah, or thanks, all of that is moving aside. And when the Kohen fought against the Maccabee, right? What happened? So the Kohanim live in the temple, the place of avodah, the place of total submission. What would happen on Yom Kippur? Baruch, Shem, Kavod. We'd say the verse of bless Hashem's, right? Blessed is the name of God, right? Praise forever and ever. And it would be coupled with complete and total submission. We would do what's called pishu yadayim v'raglayim. We would spread our hands and our feet. We would lie down and completely like just submit. We'd fall to the floor. And when we would do that, when we heard Hashem's name spelled out, Yud Ke Vav Ke said, you'd fall to the floor, right? What greater honor is there to a king than that? When you say Baruch Shem Kavod, like praise is the name of the glory of God. What glory of God? Think of this moment. His name is so great, we don't say it in this world. We can't. It can channel everything. We can't even say it. But the moment we talk about it, even in shul, we remember when the Kohen did it, and we drop to the floor, right? In complete submission and letting God in. The temple, the place of avodah, of service, of Yitzchak, right? Was avodah also, right? It's like the idea of like we're making total way. And what happens then? So the Mishnah describes that the Beis HaMikdash was very, very stuffy on Yom Kippur, but somehow when we bowed down, when we made way, when we completely spread out, there was all the room we ever needed was right there, right?
the space would expand.
Yeah. Either I don't know if that would expand, we got smaller. Who knows? But you entered into a realm where limits were gone.
Right.
Exactly when you accept the limits. Right.
Well, it was like in the Holy Holies where the ark would not take up any space.
Exactly.
It's the same principle.
Right. So that's exactly the Kohen. So the Kohen was the one who fought against the Maccabees. You could despair, you can make way for the Maccabee, or you could make way for God, for the light of God to come in. And by the way, Hanukkah is light, right? It's the idea of shining in a place of darkness, that idea of expanding this tiny little wick so that the whole room is receiving it. And the Maharal says something beautiful by Hanukkah. By the way, if you ever want to like rock out with Maharal and just sit and let him like fill you, he has like 8 chapters on Hanukkah. People have a minute to one each day. Like it's incredible. And he talks about the Kohen. He says that the gematria of Kohen is 75. Kaf is 20. Hey is 5. Nun is 50. 75 is the midpoint between 70 and 80. And Maharal says that 10's places are just bigger expressions of 1's places. So whatever 1 means, 10 means the same thing, just bigger. Whatever 2 means, 20 means the same thing, just bigger. So the number 70 is Shabbos. It's Teva, it's nature, it's the world that got created. 8 is above nature. It's the bris milah. It's the world of heaven, of the infinite. And the Kohen, who's 75, was the centerpiece that met between the two. He worked in the temple because the temple is what brought the Shekhinah into the world. So the two universes all of a sudden came together, and the Kohen was the one that was there.
Right. It was the portal.
And all that came through who? Aharon. Because of the power of Shalom. We know, by the way, that Shalom is the driving piece for the Kohen, because when Pinchas came back to become a Kohen again, in Parshas Pinchas, so the way that the Torah describes it, I'm giving you my bris of Shalom, of peace. So it's clear that the power of Aharon, the power of the avodah of Aharon, and the Kohen was through the angle and the energy of Shalom, which we've been describing this whole time as the shards, as the pieces that all come together, and like you have to bring them together to make the kli, and then Hashem could come. And that's the job of the Kohen. Take the broken world that seems to be in a million places, and all of a sudden say, no, it's not broken. Everything is one. Hashem Echad, and we pull it all together, and then God comes in.
Okay, so to maybe translate this a little more into practical language.
Sure. So, meaning where can we use it in our life?
Yes, because it seems like what you're saying, that the vessel of Hod is I'm trying to reconcile submission, acceptance with, there's also an element of gratitude, of filling the vessel with gratitude and not filling the vessel with a bad eye or focusing on what's not right. Like the idea of people who, when they have this test, this challenge, this opportunity for growth, better way to say it than test, opportunity for growth presents itself, which Hashem always does. And they worry about the outcome, which is nothing more than davening for the negative outcome, is to worry about something, right? That's filling the vessel with the wrong thing. You're saying that part of Hod is filling the vessel with gratitude for what's there. And that makes room for more bracha. But yeah, I'm still putting all these pieces together. So you could help me out a little bit. I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Let's go with the very practical pursuit. So let's first start with Netzach for a second and see how this plays with Hod. So
okay.
Let's first think about how to conquer the world with Netzach. If one were to completely be channeling this. So Netzach is conquest. So in terms of let's say my avodah Hashem, to take care of my family and to create a home with the ample money that's needed for everything. It's not just something that is nice to do. It's mitzvah. And you can make it that. So there are days that are good. There are days that are bad. But the real power that's utilized through Netzach is I know that that this is working, and I know that it's coming, and I take another step, and I take another step, and I get up the next day and I take another step, and I keep pushing, and there's the energy of I'm going to conquer the world. There's a world out there. Think about the advent of YouTube, and there's billions of people that you can reach, and I'm just going to keep going, and I post another message and another message and another message, and the algorithm is going to take it to someone, and that person is someone it's going to click to, and I just have to keep going. And there's actually a book I think I referenced yesterday called The Dip, and it talks about the idea that when the dip comes, when the curve goes down in what you're building, it's you should know that that's that turning point before it goes up. That's normal in any business building, in any development. In weight loss, by the way, it's also like that, right? You start and whoa, and all the money, the water weight, the 10 pounds, the 15 pounds, 20 pounds, just knocks down, and all of a sudden it stops. And it's so frustrating. I mean, right. And then, but you keep going and you keep going, and you know that the next day it's going to keep getting better. That's where Netzach is. You keep the fight going. You fight the good fight, and it's a very, very important thing.
Is it anticipation as well? Is that the idea here that
it's consistency?
This is the future that I'm just drawing it, pulling it towards me.
Or in Netzach would probably be I'm traveling towards even, right? The manifestation is where I'm pulling it towards me. And that's part of the way that you can. Operate. But the idea of Netzach is I'm fighting. I'm going to get there. I'm taking another step and taking another step. It's a very important part of life, and it applies everywhere in learning, in family, and it requires that constant I'm going to do it again.
Right.
Hod would be the following. Hod is I don't know how to take that next step today. It's not I'm going to use the picture of it's not I'm going to use the picture of I know it's coming, so I'm going to keep going, conquering. It's I don't know how it's going to come today because it didn't work yesterday, and it didn't work last week, and it didn't work a month before, or 2 months before, or 4 months before. Why is this going to be different? The power of Hod is the power of submission, and you could submit in two directions. You could submit to the reality of Yeush, of despair, of yesterday told me one thing, or it can be that I'm submitting to the notion of Hamechadish Betuvo Bechol Yom Tamid Maseh Bereshis, that God renews every day, constantly, the creation of the entire universe. Today is a new day, and God is here, and my life, I can get up again. Ein Yeush Be'olam comes from the same midah. I'm not giving up. Comes from the same midah as Yeush. I give up or I don't give up comes from Hod. Who is it that you want in front of you? And so Netzach would be, I'm going to keep going because I know I'm going to get there. I know that I'm conquering, and I'm still in business mode, and I'm still fighting, and I got that energy. But then there's those mornings that you get up and routine isn't enough anymore, right? Or that I need to renew, and the way to renew is by submission, by submitting to the right thing, submitting to the side of light. letting the light of Hanukkah come in, that becomes so like potent that all the reasons that it wouldn't work just fall aside. Bracha, gratitude, is a way of emptying yourself. You were asking, how does bracha connect to this? So gratitude means, Hashem, every blessing that I have is already you. You are the source of all blessing. And I'm waiting for you to come in the way that I want you to come, right? That's the desire. I want this, but I know that you're already here, and I know that you're taking care of me, and I know that everything that I have till now, I can never, like the way it's described in Nishmas, the thousands and thousands and thousands of blessings and moments and this and that. I can never thank you enough for all of them. And like if my life ended right here, that would be okay, right? If nothing ever worked again, I still should be grateful, because every breath that I took was a miracle, all right? And the life that I have is a miracle, and I'm grateful for it. And I don't deserve anything. I really don't. Yeah, I'm like, there's an element of that in life. There is. I work really hard, and there's that part of it. And then there's the other side of taka, like 60 trillion cells that are working. Bli Ein Hara, a person wakes up and is healthy. Those 60 trillion cells, one of them could have developed cancer and doubled and didn't. And for the person who does have, it's they're channeling, seeing other blessings. Till this moment in life, everything was there. And I know that I recognize the difficulty in the acceptance of these words, when you're thinking about really hard times. But I hope you can at least see the truth and the reality of of the blessings, right?
Right. So the chair you're sitting in is the chair I sit in when I get tired of sitting in this chair. Like this chair on my desk and all my monitors is where it's Nitzak chair, I guess you could say.
So you're in that Hod. I love that.
Yeah. So sometimes I just get so I'm banging my head against the wall, and I'll get out of this chair and go sit in, now call my Hod chair.
Yeah.
Because that is where I'll sit and, read some pages of Garden of Gratitude or something, or do some meditation, deep breaths. But one of the things I've noticed, now I think back on it, that I've been doing over the last year is contemplating how, in this moment, everything that I've built so far, like regard to this business, let's say, or even my Yiddishkeit being here and all these things, that I can see everything has been orchestrated to absolute perfection.
Wow.
In total detail, in absolute kindness. I wouldn't have that if that wouldn't have happened. Everything. Sometimes to sort of realize, okay, this moment is actually great.
Wow.
But I can't be in this moment because I can't stay here. I need to push forward again, but it does sort of ground me and reset. And now you're basically describing what I've been experiencing is Hod.
Yeah. And remember, the spheros are your internal powers too. And sometimes we have to channel Avram, sometimes it's Yitzchak, sometimes it's Aaron. And it's hard to remember which one to channel and when, especially in those moments. But yeah, that's it. That's the idea. Let that light come in. The light of your upper self, fill and making room for it. From a meditative standpoint, so the idea of letting Hashem in, the more space that's there, it's a very easy one because he's already there. So what you're really doing is imagine you're, the Othello pieces, the black and the white, you're just flipping the other side to see it. It seems like it's the other team, it's the black ones and you're the white team. Right. And you just flip the piece and all of a sudden you say, no, this is the white one. This is part of my team. It's right here for me.
Right.
You're elevating the world that way. And it's incredible.
This whole idea of the gratitude and the shalom, there was an experience I had, which I'm glad I'm bringing back to my memory, but it was back when I was in Kingwood. I needed $50,000 in 45 days.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah, and it was okay, so I was how am I going to come up with this money? That's a lot of business to bring in. I was talking to the rabbi at the Reform Synagogue where we would host the Rabbi Yokov Wolbe's class. And there was this really nice man that would show up all the time. And he called me and his name came up. And I was yeah, he hasn't been there in a while. He's yeah, he's been in the hospital, wow. Really severe condition. And he was someone that worked for an hourly wage. So he wasn't like me who were at the time when I was working for a company where it's just guys, I won't be able to show for a few weeks, but your paycheck still comes in on time, right?
Right.
And he basically was looking at an eviction from his home because, he was in severe condition. So I was like, oh, that's horrible. And I ended up calling the rabbi back. And I said, after I thought about it for a while, and I talked to Hashem, and I said, $5,000 would solve this man's all his problems. And the other thing was his health was restoring. So he was about to come home from the hospital, but didn't deal with the fact that he didn't have money to pay. He was several months behind on a mortgage and all his bills. And I finally decided, I said, I still have my problem if I'm minus $5,000, but it will solve all his problems. So I said, I'm just going to give this to you. Don't tell him where it came from. And then like all I could think about was all this excitement. The guy coming back from the hospital, his health's been restored, knowing that someone told a stranger, he has no idea, just solved all his financial problems. And I was so excited about like just seeing him in class and just seeing him, learning again Torah, which brought him a great amount of joy, knowing that his financial problems and he had no idea it was me, brought me so much joy, so much excitement that I forgot about my problem.
Wow.
And
you were whole.
And then I was whole. But then what ended up happening was, because I totally forgot my problem, a month later, a large chunk of business that I had given up on a long time ago came in, like all at once, and I'm getting the money I needed. So, but I had forgotten about the problem because I was just so excited about this other man's problem.
And it was 10 times what you had given?
Yeah. But I remember that tactic.
I'm jealous of your mitzvah.
So, but I remember like thinking like, don't ever forget this, Dan. And you reminded me of, because I have forgotten it. How I focused on solving someone else's problem, which is the same problem, just at a smaller level than mine, but it got rid of my problem. And it's this whole idea, isn't it, that you're talking about?
Yeah. You're moving outside yourself. Wow.
So I need more of that.
It's really beautiful. You played a role. You got to be the conduit. You got to be the Kohen in that situation. Like Hashem wanted to give him Shefa, and you got to be that. And all of a sudden that became your blessing too. And it multiplied in you. So,
and there's outside of money, I'm sure there's other ways to do this, even with kind, supportive words.
I'll give you an example.
Please.
We should probably close with this, actually. There's a concept called being a mavater. I don't know if you've ever heard of that term before. Being mavater, it's to let something go. There are stories that are told. There's a lot of text written about this. A lot of people discuss this, that the power of vitur is exceptional. The power of giving, of letting something go. And tzaddikim will say, you ever want a blessing? Go to a person who is mevater. That's where you want to go. And there's loads of stories like this. One of the stories I think is told about, I believe it was Rav Chaim Kanievsky, where a woman couldn't have children for years. And she asked Rav Chaim for a bracha. And Rav Chaim told her, I want you to get a blessing. I want you to see, when you see someone who is insulted, whose feelings are hurt, and they accept it, and they're mevater, and they let it go, I want you to go get a blessing from them. She was at a wedding. There was a divorced couple who was paying for the wedding. The father was, and the father was paying, the mother wasn't. And the father was remarried. And the mother showed up for her daughter's wedding. And the father's wife ripped on her in public and shamed her. How can you be here? All these things. It was horrible. And she was so embarrassed, but she just walked out. Didn't fight back, walked out. And this girl who heard from Rav Chaim ran out to her and said, I'm so sorry to do this to you at this moment, but what you did was incredible, to let it go. And I need a blessing from you to have a child. She gave her the blessing, and within a year she had a child. She couldn't have it for years. And the power of vitur is the power of the vessel, of the kli, of just emptying yourself for the greater good.
Yeah.
The term shalom actually is God's name. And if you track prayer, Chazal say, Gadol HaShalom Sheshmo Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu Shalom, great is peace because the name of God is peace. Gadol HaShalom, great is peace because we end Birkas Kohanim with peace, Shmona Esrei with peace, benching with peace, right? We end with Sim Shalom, is the end of Shmona Esrei, benching is Hashem Yivarech Hashem Shalom, and God will bless His nation with peace, and then the blessing from the priestly blessing is V'yasem Melech HaShalom, and I give you peace. We close all blessings with peace. Because we know the secret that the only kli that can hold the bracha is Hashem. Hashem's name is peace. So the peace itself is going to be the conduit of bringing Hashem. Hashem is peace. So with this idea, right? So now we close with the full picture of what it means. Is like that when you have peace, it's not just the vessel, The vessel is Hashem. Shalom is Hashem. It's his name. Wild idea. When you bring more peace to the world, you're actually bringing godliness to the world. In fact, the Talmud points out that by a sota, right? A sota is a woman who is suspected of cheating on her husband. So she's supposed to drink this water to vindicate herself. Like she told her husband said, I don't want you to seclude yourself with this man again. And she secluded herself again. So in order to prove that she didn't do anything, she has to drink this water. And the water has a parsha on it. It has pieces of Torah on it with God's name. And the Talmud says God allows his name to be erased for the sake of making peace between a husband and wife. And the Maharal says he didn't actually erase his name. He brought shalom, which means he brought more of him, not less of him, to the world. He became a riboy. So when you create shalom, you're actually creating a place for Hashem in the world. And that is the power. It's the secret of Hod. It's the secret of Aharon. It's the idea that like with the balance of Netzach and the fight, with every step, it's gratitude. It's none of it was me. Like it was all Hashem. And then you open up, and then your vessel is empty again. So then you could do Netzach, another step of fight. I got it, but none of it was me. And your vessel is empty again. So you take another step, and now let's fill it again, right? And you keep taking those steps, and then right? And that's what allows and empowers it to come down. So that's really, if you want to channel the midah of Hod in life and the midah of Aharon, it's through shalom, it's through emptying yourself, whether with God, whether with another person, whether with just being at peace with yourself and knowing that like it's okay. Let the guilt out so a new person can emerge. And that's really the beauty of Hod. We're almost at next week where the blessings are actually going to come into the world with Yosef.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rabbi. That was so much to digest and think about. I appreciate it. And this has been extremely meaningful for me. Like I said earlier, I just wanted to learn about this topic, and I hope others will appreciate listening to it as well. So thank you again.
It's mamash a kavod to be here. It's an honor to learn with you.
Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed the episode and found it meaningful, please take a moment to rate, review, and share the podcast.